The grand chamber of the Galactic Accord was a masterpiece of engineering. Its curved walls showed a live view of the stars outside, making everyone feel as if they were floating in space. In the center of the room, representatives from 100 species gathered. Their voices created a low, humming sound of many different languages. Today, they were welcoming a new member, a young species from a small blue world called Earth. Ambassador Ju Dae-hoon stood patiently at the entrance. He was a human man with a calm face and intelligent eyes. He adjusted the simple gray uniform all human diplomats wore. Behind him, his small team of aides looked nervous but tried to hide it. "Remember," Ju Dae-hoon said quietly to them, without turning his head, "we are polite. We are learners. We are guests." A tall being with smooth blue skin and long fingers motioned for them to enter. The human group walked forward on the smooth floor. All around them, alien eyes watched. Some were curious. Some were bored. Many looked down at the humans with a feeling of mild interest, the way an adult looks at a child who has done something clever. From a high platform, Speaker Klarn of the Tarkellan Dominion observed the newcomers. The Tarkellans were a powerful species, known for their strong military and pride. Klarn's body was covered in fine, gray scales. His yellow eyes blinked slowly. He had seen many species join the Accord. These humans seemed soft. Their skin looked easily damaged. They had no natural armor, no claws, not even sharp teeth. Reports said they were clever with machines and good at talking, but physically they were weak. They were also very new to traveling between stars. Their few colony worlds were small and close to their home system. "Let the record show," a melodic voice announced. It was the Accord's head moderator, a being of shimmering light. "The species known as humanity of the planet Earth is accepted into the Galactic Accord. They are granted all rights and responsibilities of membership." A polite wave of clicking and tapping sounds filled the room, the alien equivalent of applause. Ju Dae-hoon stepped up to the speaker's circle. A soft light illuminated him. "On behalf of humanity, I thank the Accord," he said. His words were instantly translated by a small device on his collar. "We come in peace. We wish to learn, to trade, and to add our voice to this great community. Our history is short compared to yours, but our hope for the future is long." His speech was good. It was humble and friendly. In the crowd, Speaker Klarn gave a small, private signal to one of his aides. The message was simple. Note their diplomatic skill. It is their primary defense. The next part was about territory. Every species needed space. The Accord had a system for giving new members a star system, one that was not already claimed but had some useful resources. A star map appeared above the chamber. A tiny, yellow star near the edge of explored space began to glow. It was called Luton's star. It had one rocky planet that could support life, now named New Tegu by the humans. It also had a large asteroid belt with useful metals. "The system of Luton's star is designated for human development," the moderator announced. On the platform, Speaker Klarn's eyes narrowed just a little. Luton's star was not very valuable. It was far from the main trade routes, but it was next to a region of space the Tarkellan Dominion wanted to explore for rare minerals. A weak species holding that system could be convenient. They could be persuaded to share, or they could be pushed. After the ceremony, there was a gathering. Different aliens came to greet the new members. Ju Dae-hoon shook hands, claws, and tentacles with the same polite smile. He answered questions about Earth's art, its oceans, and its many cultures. A Tarkellan diplomat, not Klarn himself but a lower-ranking one, approached. "Your speech was adequate," the Tarkellan said, its voice a dry rasp. "Your people adapt quickly. For a young species, we have much to learn from our elders in the galaxy." Ju Dae-hoon replied with a slight bow of his head. "Indeed," the Tarkellan said. "Your new system, Luton's star. It is a quiet place. Do you have the ships to protect it? Space can be unpredictable." The question was a test. Ju Dae-hoon's smile never changed. "The Accord's laws are our protection, and we trust in the goodwill of our neighbors, like the respected Tarkellan Dominion." The Tarkellan made a low sound that might have been a laugh. Laws and goodwill. How very human. It moved away to join its group. Later, on the human diplomatic ship orbiting the Accord station, Ju Dae-hoon let his calm mask fade. He looked tired. One of his aides, a young woman named Kim Jun, brought him a cup of tea. "They think we are children, sir," she said quietly. "They are not entirely wrong," Ju Dae-hoon sighed. "In terms of the galaxy's timeline, we are. We must be patient students. We must prove ourselves through cooperation, not conflict." But what about the Tarkellan's question? About protecting New Tegu? The colony is small. It has basic orbital defenses. The Accord safety patrols pass by sometimes. Ju Dae-hoon looked out the window at the strange stars. "Our strength is in our words and our friendships, not in warships. That is the path we have chosen." Meanwhile, near the silent, dark edge of the solar system, far beyond Pluto, a different scene was unfolding. Here, there was only cold and emptiness. A large, smooth asteroid drifted slowly. Suddenly, a section of its rocky surface shimmered. It was not rock at all, but a perfect hologram, a cloak of light and energy. Behind the disappearing image was a massive, man-made structure of dark metal. It was a space station, hidden from every sensor, silent and cold. Inside the station, called Watchtower, Admiral Kim Seekjin watched the live feed from the Galactic Accord chamber. He was an old man, his face lined with years and hidden burdens. He saw Ju Dae-hoon's polite smile. He saw the patronizing looks of the aliens, especially the Tarkellans. On another screen, a technical report scrolled. It was from a listening post near Luton Star. It mentioned strange sensor readings, brief energy spikes that didn't match any known Accord ship signatures. The post's AI had labeled them probable sensor ghosts, echoes from a nearby nebula. Admiral Kim's fingers traced the edge of the report on his screen. He knew they were not ghosts. He knew exactly what kind of ships made those faint, almost invisible signatures. Ships that were not supposed to exist. He leaned back in his chair. The young diplomat down there, full of hope and talk of goodwill, had no idea what was hidden in the dark. He was playing his part perfectly, and Admiral Kim would play his. For now, the veil would remain. The galaxy could keep its patronizing peace. Humanity would smile and bow, and the hidden armada would continue to sleep, waiting in the endless night. The colony on New Tegu was a small, hard-working place. Greenhouses dotted the red soil, and low buildings clustered near the water extraction plant. The sky was a pale orange during the day. At night, the stars were incredibly bright, with the band of the Milky Way cutting across the heavens. For the 5,000 people living there, life was about routine and hard work. They were farmers, engineers, and scientists. They missed Earth sometimes, but they were proud of what they were building. The main settlement was simply called First Landing. Park Yuna, the colony's head of security, stood on the roof of the communications building. She was not a soldier. She was a former police officer from Seoul. Her job was to handle disputes, check safety systems, and make sure the oxygen recyclers worked. She looked up at the sky, a habit she had developed since arriving. A young technician, Choi Miho, called up to her from the open door. "Chief Park, we're getting that signal again. From the asteroid belt." Yuna climbed down the ladder into the small, warm room full of screens and equipment. "Show me." On the main screen, a line of data scrolled. It showed a brief, powerful burst of energy in the belt. It lasted less than a second. Then it was gone. "It's the third time this week," Miho said. "The system says it's probably reflected radiation from the nebula, or a small asteroid collision." Yuna stared at the empty spot on the sensor map where the burst had been. Her instincts, honed from years on the city beat, tingled. Something felt wrong. It was too clean, too quick. "Has Accord Traffic Control reported any survey ships in the area?" Miho checked another screen. "No, ma'am. Nothing scheduled. It's a quiet sector. Keep monitoring it. Record everything, even if the computer calls it a ghost." "Yes, Chief." Back on the Galactic Accord station, Ambassador Ju Dae-hoon was busy. His days were filled with meetings about trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and environmental protocols. He was good at this. He was building a picture of humanity as a reliable, peaceful partner. Today, he was meeting with a representative from the gentle, plant-like xylo species about sharing agricultural techniques for new Tegu. The meeting was going well. His personal aide, Kim Jun, slipped into the room. Her face was calm, but her eyes were urgent. She waited politely until the Xylo's representative finished speaking. "Ambassador," June said softly, "a priority message has arrived from the Tarkellan Dominion's diplomatic office. They request an immediate meeting." Ju Daehoon felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He kept his smile for the Xylo's representative. "Please excuse me. Duty calls. We will continue this fruitful discussion soon." In his private office, Ju Daehoon read the message. It was formal and direct. It came from the office of Speaker Klarn himself. The title was Discussion Regarding Contested Mineral Rights in the Luton's Star Sector. "Contested," June whispered. "There is no contest. The Accord granted us that system. This is how it starts," Ju Daehoon said, his voice tired. "They create a dispute. They test our resolve." He composed a polite reply, agreeing to a meeting the next day. The meeting room in the Tarkellan wing of the station was dark and cold. The chairs were designed for Tarkellan bodies, angular and uncomfortable for a human. Speaker Klarn was there, along with two of his aides. "Ambassador Ju," Klarn began, not offering a greeting. "We have reviewed old exploration logs. Our scouts surveyed parts of the Luton Star asteroid belt over 50 cycles ago. We registered a claim for mineral exploitation." Ju Daehoon kept his hands folded on the table. "Respected Speaker, the Galactic Accord's charter is clear. Uninhabited systems have no prior claims unless actively developed. Your logs show a flyby, not a development. The system was empty when the Accord granted it to humanity." Klarn's yellow eyes stared. "Our interpretation is different. The resources in that belt are significant. Your species, with its limited infrastructure, cannot use them fully. We propose a shared arrangement. Tarkellan mining ships will begin operations. You will receive a small percentage of the profits." The offer was an insult. It was not sharing. It was theft with a polite excuse. Ju Daehoon knew that if he agreed, humanity would be seen as weak by every species in the galaxy. "I am afraid I cannot agree," Ju Daehoon said, his voice steady. "The system is ours. We are happy to discuss purchasing mineral rights from you at a fair market price, based on your historical survey data. But the authority is ours." A low hiss came from one of Klarn's aides. Klarn himself was silent for a long moment. "You refuse a generous offer from the Dominion? I seek an agreement that respects the laws of the Accord, which both our species have sworn to uphold." Klarn stood up, his tall frame imposing. "The galaxy is not built on laws alone, Ambassador. It is built on strength and respect. Think on this. We will contact you again soon." The meeting was over. Back on Watchtower, the hidden station, Admiral Kim Seekjin watched the recording of that meeting. He saw the anger in Klarn's eyes, the dismissive posture. He also saw the steady courage of Ambassador Ju. The Admiral felt a deep pride. Mixed with a heavier sadness, a new report flashed on his screen. This one was from a deep space sensor drone, hidden light years away from Luton Star. It was not a ghost reading. It was clear and sharp. A Tarkellan battle group, 5 warships, had changed course. Their new destination was the Luton Star system. Their estimated arrival time was 72 hours. Admiral Kim picked up a secure communicator. It used a technology no one in the Accord knew humans possessed. It sent a signal that traveled through a folded layer of space, reaching its destination almost instantly in a quiet office on Earth. In a city that had been rebuilt from ashes centuries ago, the signal was received. A committee of 12 men and women, the keepers of the Veil Protocol, saw the data. They voted. The decision was unanimous. Admiral Kim received the coded reply. He let out a long, slow breath he didn't know he was holding. For over 100 years, humanity had hidden its greatest secret, its darkest lesson. The time of hiding was coming to an end. He typed a second set of orders. These went to a specific point in space, far from any star, a place marked on no maps. The orders were simple. Prepare to execute contingency deterrence. Move to Luton's star. Hold position behind the veil. Await final command. In the infinite blackness between stars, space itself seemed to ripple. A fleet of ships, sleek and dark and silent, disengaged from the asteroids they were hidden behind. Their engines, cold for decades, began to glow with a soft, blue light. They formed into a perfect formation and moved. They did not travel through normal space, but slipped into a dimensional layer that allowed them to move faster than any Accord ship ever could. They were coming. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's true strength was not in its words, but in the terrible, patient silence it had kept for generations. The mood in First Landing had changed. The initial confusion about the strange sensor readings had turned into a quiet fear. The public announcement system had told everyone to stay calm and go about their business. But people could feel it. The nervous looks of the technicians, the way Security Chief Park Yuna now wore a serious expression and carried a hardened tablet linked to all the colony's sensors. Yuna stood in the command center, which was really just a larger room in the communications building. All screens showed the same view, the calm, orange sky of New Tegu, but one screen showed the space around their planet. 5 new contacts had appeared 2 hours ago. They were holding position just outside the orbit of their single moon. They were Tarkellan warships. Their shapes were blocky and threatening, covered in weapon ports. "They are hailing us," Choi Miho said, his voice tight. "Put it on speaker," Yuna said. A voice, rough and translated by a cold computer, filled the room. "Colony of New Tegu. This is Force Commander Grash of the Tarkellan Dominion. Your presence in this system is in violation of Dominion mineral claims. You will power down all defensive systems and prepare to receive a boarding party for negotiations. You have 1 hour to comply." Yuna picked up the microphone. Her hand was steady. "Force Commander Grash. This is Park Yuna, Chief of Security for New Tegu. This colony operates under the authority of the Galactic Accord. You have no jurisdiction here. We do not recognize your claim. You are ordered to leave this system immediately." There was a long silence. Then, a different sound came through. A dry, clicking laugh. "Your accord is far away, human. Your defenses are nothing. Your hour begins now." The connection cut. Yuna looked around the room at the frightened faces of her team. They were farmers and engineers. They had no weapons to fight warships. Their only hope was that the Accord would intervene in time, or that the Tarkellans were only bluffing. "Send the emergency signal to the Accord and to Ambassador Ju," Yuna said. "Again. And activate the planetary shelter protocol. Get everyone underground. Now." On the Galactic Accord station, chaos had erupted. Ambassador Ju Daehoon stood in the main council chamber, his voice rising above the arguing noises. "This is an act of aggression," he said, pointing at the image of the Tarkellan fleet around New Tegu. "They are threatening a civilian colony. The Accord must send its peacekeeping force now." Speaker Clarn stood calmly at his own podium. "This is a bilateral dispute over resources. The Accord Charter allows for members to negotiate such matters. A peacekeeping force would be an overreach. We are negotiating. You are holding 5,000 people hostage," Ju Daehoon shouted, his usual calm completely gone. "They are not hostages. They are being asked to comply with a legal request," Clarn said smoothly. He looked at the other representatives. "Shall we vote on sending peacekeepers? I believe the bureaucracy will take at least 24 hours to resolve." Ju Daehoon felt a crushing helplessness. He was losing. The Accord was slow, and the Tarkellans knew it. He looked at the screen, at the image of the small colony his people had worked so hard to build. They were a lone dot on the bridge of the Tarkellan flagship. Iron Will, Force Commander Grash watched the timer count down. The human colony was scrambling like insects. He saw the small energy signatures of their pathetic ground-based lasers powering up. They might scratch his ship's paint. It was almost funny. "Any movement from Accord space?" he asked his sensor officer. "None, Commander. A few signals of protest, but no ships. The nearest patrol is 2 days away." Grash smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Perfect. This would be easy. Take the colony, secure the mining rights, and show the galaxy that the humans were as weak as they looked. The Dominion would reward him. Prepare the boarding shuttles, he said, and target their communications array. Let's silence them before we land. Target locked. The weapons officer confirmed. Fire. On New Tegu, Park Yuna saw the energy spike on her screen. They're charging weapons, she yelled. Everyone, brace. But the shot never came. At that exact moment, space around the Tarkellan fleet. It was the only way to describe it. One moment, there was empty space between the Tarkellan ships and the colony's moon. The next, the stars in that area shimmered, waved, and dissolved like a mirage. What replaced them was not empty space. It was Metal Point 7 ships decloaked. They appeared without a sound, without an energy surge that any Tarkellan sensor could detect. One moment they were not there, the next they filled the space. They were huge, larger than the Tarkellan flagship. Their design was like nothing in the Accord databases, sleek, angular, and dark, like sharp knives made for the night. Blue light glowed along their edges. In the center of the formation was the largest ship. On its side, in simple human letters, was its name. Unyielding Spirit. On the iron will, every alarm screamed at once. The sensor officer stared at his screen, his scales turning pale. Commander, multiple contacts. They just appeared. No warp signature, no cloaking vika. They were just there. Grash stumbled to his feet. What are they? Whose are they? The energy signatures are human, Commander. The identification codes are human. Terran sovereignty vessel. Human? Impossible. Grash roared. But he looked at the main viewer, at the monstrous ship now blocking his path to the colony. A cold dread, unfamiliar and bitter, began to creep into his stomach in the command center on New Tegu. Park Yuna saw the new ships appear on her screen. She did not understand. The symbols were human, but humans did not have ships like that. No one had ships like that. A new communication request flashed with the highest priority code she had ever seen. She opened the channel. The voice that came through was calm, clear, and human. It spoke in Korean. New Tegu Security, this is Captain Lee Minwo of the Terran Sovereignty Vessel Unyielding Spirit. You are safe. Please stand by. Before Yuna could even form a word to reply, the channel switched. Now, the same voice spoke in perfect, translated Galactic Common. It was being broadcast to every ship in the system. Tarkellan Force Commander. This is Captain Lee Minwo. You have targeted a human world. Power down your weapons and engines. Prepare to be boarded for the violation of sovereign space. On the Tarkellan bridge, Grash felt rage replace his dread. How dare this human speak to him like this? He had 5 warships. This was a trick, a hologram. All ships, he yelled. Target the largest human vessel. Destroy it. The Tarkellan ships turned, their heavy cannons glowing with power. On the bridge of the Unyielding Spirit, Captain Lee Minwo watched the tactical display. He stood with his hands behind his back. Next to him, his first officer, Commander Park Yuna, a different Park Yuna, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm face, watched the same screen. They're locking weapons, Captain, she said. Lee Minwo nodded slowly. He had hoped it would not come to this. But he was not surprised. Activate point defense. Disable their primary weapons arrays. Use minimum necessary force. He gave the order not with a shout, but with a quiet sadness. He was not starting a war. He was ending one before it could truly begin. The galaxy's long, patronizing peace was over. The lesson was about to start. The silence on the bridge of the Unyielding Spirit was total. It was not a quiet of fear, but of intense focus. Every crew member watched their screens, their hands moving calmly over the controls. Captain Lee Minwo stood in the center, his eyes fixed on the main viewer. The Tarkellan ships were turning, their weapons glowing with a harsh, green light. On the Tarkellan flagship, Force Commander Grash felt his confidence return. These human ships appeared from nowhere, a good trick, but they were outnumbered. His ships were built for war. He raised his hand, Ready to give the order to fire, on the unyielding spirit, Commander Park Yuna spoke softly, her voice clear in the quiet room. All Tarkellan vessels have achieved weapons lock. They are at firing solution. Lee Minwo nodded once. Defensive pattern echo. Disable only. Outside, the dark human ships did not move to attack. Instead, small ports opened along their smooth surfaces. Dozens of small, precise lasers flashed out. They were not the bright bolts of energy the Tarkellans used. These were thin, sharp beams of light, almost invisible. They struck the Tarkellan ships not on the hulls, but at the very tips of their weapon barrels and at their engine nozzles. On the iron will, Grash slammed his hand down. Fire! But nothing happened. The weapons officer stared at his panel in confusion. Commander, primary cannons are offline. They are fused shut. The energy connectors are cut. What? How? Before anyone could answer, the ship shuddered. A different kind of hit, a solid, powerful thump. The lights flickered. Engine power failing. Another officer yelled. We are losing thrust. They hit our propulsion with a kinetic round. Accuracy is perfect. No hull breach, but the engine is disabled. Grash looked at the viewer in horror. His entire fleet, 5 powerful warships, were now floating silently in space. Their weapons were useless lumps of metal. Their engines were cold. Not one of them had managed to fire a single shot. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration, a surgical removal of their ability to fight. The human fleet had not even moved from its formation. A new communication request flashed on his screen. It was from the human ship, the unyielding spirit. Grash, his claws trembling with anger and a new, cold fear, accepted it. Captain Lee Minwo's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, almost tired. Force Commander Grash, your weapons and propulsion are disabled. Any further hostile action will result in the total destruction of your vessels. Do you understand? Grash could not speak. He only nodded, a stiff movement of his head. Good, Lee Minwo said. You will now listen. We are broadcasting this to your ships and to the Galactic Accord. He turned slightly, speaking not just to Grash, but to the entire universe that was undoubtedly watching this feed. For centuries, the galaxy has seen humanity as young, as weak. You saw our lack of warships and thought it was a lack of strength. You saw our diplomacy and thought it was our only defense. You were wrong. On the screen behind Lee Minwo, the image of the human ships and the disabled Tarkellan fleet was replaced by a different image. It was an old video, its colors faded. It showed a beautiful blue planet, Earth. But then the video changed. It showed great flashes of light on the surface. Cities not destroyed by alien bombs, but by human ones. The images showed firestorms, crumbling buildings, and then a long, silent winter of gray ash. The final shots were of small groups of survivors in bunkers, their faces hollow with loss. This is our history. Lee Minwo's voice continued, quiet and serious. This was our final mistake. We almost ended our own story. We did this to ourselves. The image changed again to show the rebuilding. People working together not as different nations but as one species. Then it showed the first designs of ships not for exploration but for protection. It showed the secret construction in the dark places of the solar system. When we united, we made a choice. We would never be vulnerable again. Not to each other, and not to anyone else. We would build a promise so strong it would prevent another final mistake. We called it the Veil Protocol. The screen now showed the hidden shipyards, the fleets being built in secret. We used our industry, our science, our hope to build this. The image returned to the live view of the 7 silent, powerful ships around New Tegu. Not to conquer, to deter. We hid our strength not out of shame, but out of patience. We hoped the galaxy would give us peace so we would never have to show it. Lee Minwo looked directly into the viewer, his eyes holding a weight that seemed to reach across space. You have attacked a human world. So now you see the promise. This armada is our answer to fear. It is our lesson learned in fire. If you threaten our home, we will not just fight back. We will remove your ability to ever threaten anyone again. The choice for peace is always yours, but the promise of total defense is now ours. The transmission ended. On New Tegu, in the command center, Park Yuna and her team had watched everything. The fear was gone, replaced by a stunned silence. They had just been saved by a part of their own species they never knew existed. In the Galactic Accord chamber, the arguing had stopped. Every representative watched the broadcast. They saw the terrifying efficiency of the human ships. They saw the tragic history. Ambassador Ju Dae-hoon stood in the middle of the room, his own heart pounding. He felt a rush of pride and a deep sorrow. He finally understood the sad looks from the few senior officials on Earth, the ones who carried a secret too heavy to share. Speaker Clarn stood at his podium, frozen. The patronizing feeling he had for humans was gone, burned away by a chilling understanding. Humans were not children. They were survivors of a nightmare, and they had spent centuries building a wall against the dark, a wall they had just placed between the Tarkellan Dominion and its ambitions. The dread was not just for their weapons. It was for their minds. They had seen the end of everything and had decided to never see it again, no matter the cost. On the bridge of the unyielding spirit, Lee Minwo let out a slow breath. The first move was done. The veil was lifted. "Captain," Commander Park Yuna said, "we are receiving a priority signal from Watchtower. It's Admiral Kim." Lee Minwo turned. "Put him on." The wise, lined face of Admiral Kim Seekjin appeared. He looked at Lee Minwo and gave a small, grim nod of approval. "Well done, Captain. Phase 1 is complete. The galaxy is awake. Now we must teach them how to live with this new truth. Hold your position. The next words are not for soldiers, but for diplomats. But be ready. The universe has learned to dread us. Now we must show them they do not need to." The silence in the Galactic Accord chamber was heavy. It was the silence of a worldview being taken apart and put back together in a terrible new shape. The main viewer still showed the image from Luton's star, the 7 dark human ships, silent and unmoving, and the 5 Tarkellan vessels drifting helplessly beside them. All eyes slowly turned from the screen to the 2 figures at the center of the room. Ambassador Ju Dae-hoon stood at his podium. He felt like he was standing on a stage made of ice. The message from Captain Lee Minwo had explained so much: the secretive committees on Earth, the resources that always seem to be diverted to long-term infrastructure, the old, sad saying among leaders, "We build the fence so the garden can grow." He now knew what the fence was. Across the floor, Speaker Clarn remained at his own podium. His proud posture was gone. He looked smaller. The yellow light in his eyes seemed dim. He was not looking at Ju Dae-hoon. He was staring at the image of the disabled Tarkellan fleet, a monument to his mistake. A new signal request flashed on the chamber system. It was a direct feed from Earth. The moderator, after a moment of hesitation, accepted it. The face of Admiral Kim Seekjin filled the screen. He was not on a warship. He sat in a simple, plain room on Earth. He wore a simple uniform without many decorations. He looked like a teacher or a grandfather. "Representatives of the Galactic Accord," he began, his voice calm and clear. "My name is Kim Seekjin. I speak for the unified government of Earth and the Terran sovereignty." He paused, letting his words settle. For over 150 years, humanity has lived with a secret. We called it the Veil Protocol. It was not a plan for war. It was a plan to prevent war. Our history, which you have just seen, taught us that strength shown is often strength challenged. That the threat of destruction leads to its own kind of destruction. He leaned forward slightly. "So we made a choice. We would not show our strength. We would hide it. We would put most of our wealth, our best minds, our greatest effort into building a single thing. A promise. The promise that if any hand was raised against our home, against any human, it would meet not an equal force, but an overwhelming one. Not for revenge, but to stop the fight before it could truly begin." On the screen behind him, a map of the galaxy appeared. Small points of light began to glow at key locations, near important gravitational wells, next to major trade lanes, at the edges of several powerful species' territories. These are the current positions of the Terran Sovereignty Armada, Admiral Kim said. They are now decloaked. They will remain visible. They will not move unless called to defend. They are not an invasion force. They are a stabilization force. A murmur of shock and fear went through the chamber. The human ships were not just in Luton Star. They were everywhere, sitting in the darkness, now visible, like quiet guardians at every crossroads. You have seen what one small part of this armada can do, the Admiral continued. It can end a conflict without a single life lost on either side. This is its purpose, to make war against humanity not just unwise, but impossible. To make the very idea pointless. He looked directly into the camera, his gaze serious but not hostile. We do not wish to rule you. We do not wish to dictate your politics. We simply wish to exist and to protect our right to exist. The Armada is our insurance. The premium we paid was a century of secrecy and a large part of our wealth. The coverage is permanent peace. He leaned back. The galaxy now knows our secret. You may dread us. That is understandable. But we ask you to see the result. In Luton Star, a colony is safe. A Tarkellan fleet is disabled, but its crews are alive. No one is dead. A war was prevented. He turned his gaze, it seemed, directly to Speaker Clarn. The choice for how we proceed is now yours. You can see us as a new threat, or you can see us as a new fact, a fact that makes old rivalries and attempts to bully the weak suddenly very, very dangerous. For everyone, the transmission from Earth ended. The silence returned, thicker than before. Ju Daehoon knew it was his moment. He cleared his throat. The sound echoed. Members of the Accord, he said. His voice was different now. It was not the polite, eager voice of the new student. It was steady and carried a new weight. Admiral Kim has spoken the truth. The Armada exists. It will not go away. But its purpose is protection, not conquest. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of many different species. Humanity's goal remains what it was when I first stood here. Peace, trade, and cooperation. The method has simply become clearer. We are now offering openly what we have always offered, friendship. But we are also making it clear that from now on, that friendship will be built on absolute respect for our borders and our people. The time for threats is over. He turned to Speaker Clarn. Speaker, your ships are disabled at Luton Star. We will send tug vessels to help them return to Tarkellan space. We ask for no payment, no apology. We only ask that you, and all members here, understand the new reality. All eyes went to Clarn. The proud Tarkellan seemed to shrink further. He looked at Ju Daehoon, not with anger, but with a kind of stunned realization. He had thought he was pushing a child. He had instead poked a sleeping giant, and the giant had simply opened one eye and calmly pinned him down. That he knew his government would be furious, but they would also be terrified. The human ships were not just at Luton Star. The map showed one sitting at the edge of Tarkellan's own home system. A silent, dark reminder. Clarn bowed his head. A small, sharp motion. It was not a bow of friendship. It was a bow of defeat and of understanding. The Dominion understands, he said, the words rough and dry. We will recall our claims. The chamber erupted into a wave of noise, not of argument, but of frantic discussion. The old rules were broken. A new power had announced itself not with a declaration of war, but with a declaration of absolute defense. Ju Daehoon sat down. His hands were trembling under the desk. He had not won a debate. He had witnessed a revolution. Humanity was no longer a participant in the game. It had just changed the rules of the game itself. And as he looked at the worried, calculating faces around him, he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never look at a human the same way again. The dread was here. Now, the hard work of living with it began. Weeks passed. The galaxy was in a state of nervous shock. It was like a town that had discovered a quiet neighbor had built a vast, impenetrable vault underneath their house. The neighbor was still polite, still waved hello, but everything was different. On New Tegu, life began to return to normal. The greenhouses were repaired. The children went back to their lessons. But now, when people looked up at the orange sky during the day, they saw a new star. A steady blue point of light that was the unyielding spirit, holding position high above their world. It was not a threatening sight. It was a quiet promise. People found they slept more soundly. Park Yuna, the security chief, stood outside the communications building. She watched the settlers go about their day. A man named Choi Miho, the technician, walked over to her. He looked up at the sky. "It's strange," he said. "I'm not afraid of it. I should be, maybe, but I'm not." "It's because we know its name," Yuna replied quietly. "It's not a mysterious weapon. It's the unyielding spirit. It has a crew. People like us. It's here for us." Miho nodded. That was it exactly. The dread was for others. For them, it was finally feeling safe. In the Galactic Accord, the change was more complicated. Ambassador Ju Daehoon's schedule was full, but the meetings had changed. Before, species met with him to offer advice or make deals that favored them. Now, they met to ask questions. Their tone was respectful, even cautious. He was in a meeting with the Xylos, the plant-like species. They were discussing sharing a new type of seed that could grow in poor soil. "This technology is a gift," the Xylos representative said, its voice a soft rustle. "We ask for nothing in return." Before, Ju Daehoon would have insisted on a fair trade. Now he understood. This was not about trade. This was about building a relationship with the species that had the armada. He smiled warmly. "We accept your gift with thanks, and we hope you will accept a gift from us. A collection of data on water purification that our engineers have perfected." The Xylos representative bowed, a gentle swaying motion. It was a good meeting. It was a meeting between equals, and for the first time, the Xylos truly saw humanity as an equal. But not all meetings were like this. In a secure room, Ju Daehoon met with a representative from the Scarian Collective, a species known for being aggressive traders. The Scarian was blunt. "Your stabilization force. The ships near the Nixian trade lane. Their presence is disrupting the normal flow of merchant traffic. There are fears." Ju Daehoon kept his face neutral. "The Guardian of Nix is stationed in international space, as is its right. It is not blocking any lanes. Merchant ships may pass freely. In fact, its presence has already stopped 2 incidents of piracy in that sector last week. The reports are public." The Scarian shifted, uncomfortable. "Yes, but its power, it makes people nervous." "That is the point," Ju Daehoon said, his voice still polite but firm. "It makes pirates nervous. It makes anyone who thinks of attacking a civilian ship nervous. For peaceful merchants, they have nothing to fear. The armada is a shield. It only weighs heavy on those who carry swords." The Scarian had no answer to that. The meeting ended shortly after. The message was being sent, one conversation at a time. The rules had changed. On the bridge of the unyielding spirit, Captain Lee Minwo was also busy. His ship was no longer hidden. It was now a symbol and a command post. He spent hours each day reviewing reports from other human ships across the galaxy. The vigil at Serpent's Tail reported a standoff between 2 rival mining corporations diffused. The Sentinel of the Gulf had provided emergency power to a stranded passenger liner. His first officer, Commander Park Yuna, handed him a new report. "Captain, a request from the Accord's Science Council. They have a research station near a volatile nebula. They are asking if the unyielding spirit or a sister ship could assist with stability readings. Our sensor technology is apparently far ahead of theirs." Lee Minwo read the request. This was new, a request for help. Not out of fear, but out of recognition of their capability. He approved it. "Assign the steadfast resolve. Tell them to render all aid." "Yes, Captain." Lee Minwo walked to the large window on his bridge. He looked down at the curve of New Tegu, a rusty orange ball against the black. He thought about the final mistake. He thought about the centuries of quiet work in the dark. The weight of it was always there. They were not conquerors. They were guardians. And being a guardian was a lonely job. A personal message arrived. It was from Admiral Kim on Earth. The old man's face appeared on a small screen. "Captain, how does it feel to be the most visible man in the galaxy?" the Admiral asked, a faint smile on his face. "It feels heavy, sir," Lee Minwo answered honestly. "It is," Kim Seekjin nodded. "But you are carrying it well. The first reactions are in. The initial fear is starting to turn into something else. Respect, even, and for some real partnership. The Accord is forming a new committee on galactic stability. They have asked for a human advisor. They didn't order. They asked. This was significant. Humanity was being brought into the highest levels of galactic planning, not because they demanded it, but because their power made them unavoidable. "Our goal remains," the Admiral said. "We are not rulers. We are the stabilizers. We are the ones who make sure the cup does not spill. It is a thankless job most of the time, but it is the job we chose when we chose to survive." The call ended. Lee Minwo remained at the window. Below, the colony was safe. Above, the stars were clear. The universe was learning to dread humanity. But maybe, just maybe, it was also learning to rely on them. The dread was the price. The peace was the product. And for now, that had to be enough. A year had passed since the decloaking. The ceremony on New Tegu was a small one, held in the main square of First Landing. The orange sun was warm. The air smelled of turned soil and the sweet flowers from the xylo seeds that now grew in the colony's gardens. The people had gathered, not in fear, but in a quiet celebration of survival. Captain Lee Minwo stood on a simple stage. He was not wearing a formal uniform, but the same practical duty suit he wore on the bridge. Beside him stood Park Yuna, the colony's security chief, and Commander Park Yuna of the Unyielding Spirit. The two women, who shared a name and a purpose but had lived such different lives, now stood together as friends. Ambassador Ju Dae-hoon was also there. He looked more relaxed than he had in years. The constant tension of being the galaxy's polite underdog was gone from his shoulders. Lee Minwo did not give a grand speech. He spoke simply, his voice carried by amplifiers to the crowd. "We are here to remember a day," he said. "A day when fear came to your sky, and we are here to honor your courage. You stood firm when you had no reason to believe help was coming. That is the true strength of humanity. It is not in our ships." He looked up and everyone followed his gaze. High in the orange sky, the sleek, dark shape of the Unyielding Spirit was visible, a sliver of shadow against the blue. "Our ships are a tool. They are a promise we made to ourselves a long time ago after we failed. A promise that we would protect our future. That promise now protects you. It will protect your children. It is a heavy thing, but it is yours." The crowd was silent. There were no cheers. There was a deep, understanding respect. These settlers knew the weight of building something in a hard place. Now they understood the weight of the thing that guarded it. After the ceremony, Lee Minwo walked through the colony. He saw the new water plant, built with technology shared freely by the Scarians. He saw a young boy pointing up at his ship, explaining to his friend how the engines worked. He felt the weight lighten, just a little. He found a quiet spot at the edge of the settlement, where the red rock met the first green rows of crops. He was not surprised to see a figure waiting for him there. It was Speaker Clarn. The Tarkellan diplomat looked older. The proud, rigid posture was softened. He had come to the ceremony as a guest, unannounced and without a guard. He stood now, looking out at the human fields. "Captain," Clarn said, his translated voice lacking its old sharpness. "Speaker," Lee Minwo replied, stopping beside him. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the settlers work in the distance. "You carry a terrible burden," Clarn said finally, repeating the words Lee Minwo had heard in his mind for a year. Lee Minwo nodded. "It is the weight of our past. We made a coffin for our own war-making spirit and called it a fleet." Clarn turned his yellow eyes to look at the human captain. "My people study your history now. The final mistake. We study it not as a weakness, but as a lesson. We thought you were children because you had not known war on a galactic scale. We were wrong. You knew a worse war, a war with yourselves, and you learned a deeper lesson than we ever have." He looked back at the colony, at the simple, strong buildings. This dread we feel, it is not for your weapons. It is for your resolve. You would rather build in secret for centuries than risk another fall. That patience, it is terrifying. It is also lonely, Lee Minwo said quietly. I believe that, Clarn said. He took a deep breath, a human gesture he had learned. The Dominion has voted to sign the new Accord Stability Pact. The one your ambassador Ju helped write. We will stand down our forward fleets. This was enormous news. It was the first real, permanent change in galactic politics born from the Armada's presence. It was not surrender. It was an adaptation to a new reality, a reality where aggression had become too costly. Thank you for telling me, Lee Minwo said. Do not thank me, Clarn said. It is simple logic. You have not conquered a single world. You have not taken a single resource. You have only said, this far, no further for yourselves. And in doing so, you have made all of us reconsider. Dread is a powerful teacher. The Tarkellan diplomat gave a slow, respectful nod of his head. Then he turned and walked away, back to his shuttle. Lee Minwo stayed for a long time, watching the sun begin to set. The blue light along the edge of his ship, high in orbit, began to glow softly against the darkening orange. His communicator chimed. It was Commander Park Yuna on the bridge. Captain, we are receiving the nightly status reports from the fleet. All quiet. The Sentinel of the Gulf reports assisting a medical ship. The Vigil at Serpent's Tail reports no pirate activity for the 30th straight day. Good, Lee Minwo said. Tell them well done. And tell them to get some rest. He looked up one more time. The first stars were coming out. Among them, he knew, were other human ships. At Lagrange points, near nebulas, in the silent dark between suns. They were not hiding. They were watching. A promise written in stabilized plasma and cold, silent steel. The dread had settled into the fabric of the universe. It was a healthy dread, the kind that made empires think twice and bullies stand down. And in the space that dread created, something else was growing. On New Tegu, it was crops. On Earth, it was a new generation that would never know the fear of the hidden fleet, because the fleet would always be visible. In the Galactic Accord, it was cautious, respectful peace. Humanity had not won a war. They had ended an old way of thinking. They had traded the hope of being liked for the guarantee of being safe. And as the night grew cold on New Tegu, Captain Lee Minwo finally felt that it had been a fair trade. The garden was growing, and the fence was strong.